Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to this video. In this video, we are from 11 groups. We will present about gender roles. First, I will talk about gender, the definition of gender roles. Gender refers to the roles and responsibilities of men and women that are created in our families, our societies, and our cultures. Gender refers to the attitudes, feelings, and behaviors that a given culture associates with a person's biological sex. Gender roles are the product of the interactions between individuals and their environments, and they give individuals cues about what sort of behavior is believed to be appropriate for both sex. Gender roles and society. Understanding the term gender roles requires an understanding of the term gender is a social term that is often confused with the term sex. Sex and gender are different concepts. Sex is a biological concept determined on the basis of individuals' primary sex characteristics. On the other hand, gender refers to the meanings, values, and characteristics that people ascribe to different sexes. Because human creates the concept of gender socially, gender is referred to as a social construction. The social construction of gender is demonstrated by the fact that individuals, groups, and societies ascribe particular traits, status, or values to individuals purely because of their sex. Yet these ascriptions differ across societies and cultures and over time within the same society. Gender roles are the roles that men and women are expected to occupy based on their sex. The different disciplines offer a range of perspectives on gender roles. First is an ecological perspective. An ecological perspective suggests that gender roles are created by the interactions between individuals, communities, and their environments. That is, while individual people play a role in constructing gender roles, so too do the physical and social environments within which people operate. Second is a biological perspective. A biological perspective suggests that women have a natural affinity towards the feminine gender role and that men have a natural affinity toward the masculine gender roles. The biological perspective suggests that one role holds an inherently greater value than another role. The third is sociological perspective. A sociological perspective toward gender roles suggests that masculine and feminine roles are learned and that masculine and feminine gender roles are not necessarily connected to males and females' biological traits. Sociologists study the different meanings and values that masculine and feminine gender roles hold in the society. Related to the sociological perspective, the fourth is feminist perspective. Feminist perspective might assert that because gender roles are learned, they can also be unlearned, and that new and different roles can be created. The feminist perspective points out that gender roles are not simply ideas about appropriate behavior for males and females, but also are linked to the different levels of power that males and females hold in society.
Material is about gender roles and politics. First, I'll tell you about the definition of gender and politics. Gender and politics, also called gender in politics, is a field of study in a political science and gender studies that aims to understand the relationship between people's genders and phenomena in a politic. Based on the slide that you have seen, you can see that gender roles and politics are very important in this era. And in every country around the world, there are many rules for gender rules in the politics. First, I will give you the examples gender roles and politics in the United States. There are two biggest party in the United States. First is Republican and the second is Democrats. The Republicans and Democrats have very different views about where things stand today and what factors are holding one back. And these two parties have a different views about the gender roles in a politic. You can see on the PowerPoint that made by my group. And for the second, I'll give you the example in the gender roles and politics in Australia. Over the last decade, there has been a marked increase in interest in what has been labeled a gender gap between men and women. While the representation of women and men in the decision-making arenas of politics, the existence of partisans of a gender gap with respect to voting behavior and political attitudes is still under discussion. Party strategists and researchers both in Australia and overseas continue to investigate how the gender gap might manifest itself.
It's me, Nabila Rizafata, and now I want to continue my group presentation about gender roles. And then the next material is about gender roles attitudes in economy in 3 countries: US, Australia, and Britain. Number 1. Gender roles attitude in US or America. Traditional gender attitudes say that men are still seen as providers, women are seen as caregivers who also work. However, over time in America, there has been a cultural shift that has led to a change in attitudes from gender roles or gender equality attitudes. This is due to problems in childcare, where childcare is seen as a booster of economic progress in the United States. This is because if childcare costs are high, it will encourage women to work, whether part-time jobs or full-time jobs. In addition, childcare can allow women and men to share jobs in the household. That way, gender equality will be achieved. This is consistent with the statement from Anne Mary Slaughter. We will achieve gender equality when we value caregiving as much as breadwinning, when we expect both men and women to be equally competent and equally responsible for caregiving and breadwinning. Number 2. Gender roles attitude in Australia. Changes in gender roles or attitude in Australia are caused by trends over time from Australian culture. Van Egmond, Baxter, Batchelor, and Western 2010 examined trends over time in gender roles attitudes in Australia using repeated cross-sectional national survey data collected in 1986. 1993, 1997, 2001, and 2005. Gender role attitudes were measured by 5 items. Number 1. It is better for the family if the husband is the principal breadwinner outside the home and the wife has primary responsibility for the home and children. Number 2. If both husband and wife work, they should share equally in the housework and childcare. Number 3, ideally there should be as many women as men in important positions in government and business. Number 4, there should be satisfactory childcare facilities so that women can take jobs outside the home. Number 5, a woman who works in a paid job can be just as good a mother as one who does not. The result shows a trend toward more egalitarian attitudes for both men and women on items 1, 3, and 4 until the mid-1990s, followed by a stabilization of views. For item 2, there is a continuous trend toward more egalitarian views, while for item 5, the results show a trend toward less support for the view that women in paid employment can be just as good a mother as one who is not employed. This may be interpreted as a trend toward more conservative attitudes about mothers in paid employment. The early 1970s and 1990s, the feminist movement in Australia reached its peak, and this result is gender roles attitude has changed in various fields that are associated with broader structural changes in gender equality in the labor market and political environment. Many economic, demographic, and social changes have been linked to increasing women's interest into paid work in Australia. But in the middle 90s, the feminist movement in Australia became invisible, and the Australian government adopted policies that favored men as breadwinners. At the same time, 20 years later, Australia became more conservative in attitude toward gender roles, where regardless of whether men and women could be breadwinners or just housekeepers, there was a statement that paid worker women could be good mothers like women who don't work. Number 3. Gender roles attitudes in Britain. In the mid-1980s, close to half, 43% in 1984 and 48% in 1987 of people supported a gendered separation of roles, with the man in the breadwinner role and the women in the caring role. In 2012, in contrast, only 13% of people, or 1 person in 8, thinks that this should be the case. In British social attitude since 1989, when half, 53% of the public agreed that men and women should both contribute to the household income. In 2012, the proportion agreeing has risen to 62% with some fluctuation in the intervening period. This is a big support for gender equality, where women can contribute to the household income by working outside the home. People's attitudes on the appropriate gender division between men and women may relate to their views about whether mother's employment is detrimental for family life and for children. And then this is the last, and then this is the resources that we took in our presentation. And the last I would like to say thank you to you all, and I hope you can understand our presentation. Okay, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much.